Howdy guys, this is Maverick here with another episode of No Guns Life. And in fact, I do believe that this is going to be the finale, either for this season or this core or for the series in general, right? Now, my bet is still on that there's going to be another season or at least a second core. The reason for this being that if this was the finale, it would be really weird for them to suddenly go on this sort of like side quest in a sort of way with Juzo and Mary and just leave the main story hanging there, right? So that's why I believe that there's probably going to be more later. I'll check the Twitter after I record this episode to avoid any spoilers. So yeah, anyways, like I mentioned, Juzo and Mary are some literal side quests. It literally seems to be like an extended ghost of some sort. So this should be interesting. And let's just watch this together. Alright, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. Watch this be the actual ending, and so it doesn't really have an ending at all. Alright. Seems to be a little bit more high class. This group of friends. Probably an Oju-sama. A normal girl. Right? No, I feel like definitely upper class. Ooh. And yet left you alive? Why? If he's going for the trouble of killing parents, why not kill this girl as well? Well, I guess let's find out after the opening. And back. Spectre. It seems like an episode of like the MCU or something. Especially at the beginning, and you know, a car crash, and an accident, and some super soldier coming in and killing them. Oh, she lost a leg. Alright. Haunted by an extend. But when you consider that there's actually other extended that can go in and out of, phase in and out of structures and whatnot, I feel like a kind of ghost ability extended wouldn't be that far out of the ordinary. Mary is disappointed because she wants to actually see a ghost. Yeah, I agree. So
私だ。ダニーだ。ドアを開けるよ。
いない？
ローさん、またこんなところに。
ずっと誰かに見られてる気がするんですもの。きっと亡霊が私のことも。
I was just gonna get frightened.
ローさん。
重曹さん、どうしてエクステンドが私の部屋にいるのよ。出て行ってよ。
落ち着きなさい、ローさん。彼は君を守るために私が雇った方だ。いいかい、ローさん。亡霊なんていないんだ。屋敷に現れたのは何かを狙って侵入した犯罪者だ。本当に心当たりはないのかい？侵入者が狙っている何かについてお父さんから聞いていないのかい？
痛い。
すまない。
男の人はちょっと出ててください。
バカ言え。これは俺の家。
いいから早く。
おい。サビル。
申し訳ない乾さん。ローサは今エクステンドに強い警戒心を持ってしまってるんです。
この面だからな。慣れたもんさ。
How does his head actually work?
乾さん。
Like, that's definitely one of the unknown mysteries here.
早速お出ましか。あんたはここにな。
乾さん。
あなた誰？私はメアリー、拡張技師っす。拡張技師？重蔵さん、さっきのでっかいエクステンドの付き添いなんす。帰って。ダニーさんが何を言ったか知らないけれど、拡張処理なんてしないから。その様子じゃ体もろくに洗えてないんじゃないですか？こう見えて患者さんのお世話には慣れてるんすから。
Yeah.
また縫わなきゃならねえじゃねえか。だがどうやら触れられる相手みてえで安心した。
It looks like this is an enemy that can phase.
てめえは一体。
エクステンドが嫌いなんすね。力に溺れたり、体の維持費に困って悪事に手を染めるエクステンドがいるのは確かっす。でも生きるために拡張処理を受けざるを得なかった人もたくさんいるんすよ。生きるためでもあんな姿になることを選ぶなんて私には理解できないわ。私見たのよ、あの事故の瞬間、車内に飛び込んできたエクステンドの腕を。お父様はエクステンドに恨まれる仕事をしてたの。だからきっとお父さんが検察局に勤めてたんすね。それでこれグスタフ MV360 じゃないですか。父のバイク、それがどうしたの？どうしたも何も。戦時中試験的に5台だけ製造されたモンスターマシンっすよ。ガスタービンエンジンの排熱がすごすぎて長時間稼働すると車体そのものが溶けちゃう馬鹿げた。ごめんなさい。つい。いいのよ、謝らなくて。確かまだ倉庫にあるはずだから好きにしていいわよ。いいっすか？ええ、もう動かすこともないでしょうし。それずっとつけてますけど。
That's probably the key.
父がくれたの、あの事故の直前に。そうっすか。おかしいでしょ、こんなペンダント女の子に贈るものじゃないわ。プレゼントなんて柄にもないことするから。
ローサ、また侵入者が現れた。
ダ 兄さん失礼っすよ。女の子の部屋に。
そんな場合じゃないんだ。乾さんが対処してくださっているうちに安全な場所へ逃げないと。
まだ無理に動かしたら。
Yeah, this guy is definitely.
いやよ、エクステンドの亡霊なんかにこの家を明け渡す気はないわ。
乾さん、よかった。あとは頼みます。ローサは私が。
悪いが一服させてもらってるぜ、お嬢ちゃん。
何をのんきな。まさかもう侵入者を退治してくださったんですか。
お前の言うその侵入者、そいつが本当に亡霊だったとしたらどうする？
どうしたんです？さっきお見せしたでしょう。窓の下の足跡を。
そいつはおかしいな。知ってるか？亡霊ってのには足はねえらしいぜ。
あれはあの時の。まさか手だけのエクステンド？でもどうして重蔵さんが一緒に？
お嬢ちゃんに取り付いた本当の亡霊の正体教えてやるよ。
I guess this extended actually helped protect her? Something like that?
なあ、あんた。ありもしねえ足跡を捏造してまで侵入者の存在を演出したかったのはなぜだ？父親の残した何かを侵入者が狙っているとお嬢ちゃんに思い込ませることで、その何かのありかを吐かせたかったんじゃねえのか？ダニーさんよ。
一体何の話を？
重蔵さん？ちょっと何を。まさかそれ盗聴器？
違うんだ。信じてくれ。これはローサの身の安全を考えての。
身の安全か。いつ侵入者に襲われるかもしれない娘を警護もつけずに一人残してお前は俺のところへ来た。
Because he's the culprit.
知ってたんだろう？侵入者がお嬢ちゃんを襲いやしねえってことをよ。悪いことは言わねえ。お嬢ちゃんをこっちへよこしな。
いいじゃない。エクステンドの言うことなんか真に受けるわけないじゃない。ローサさん。
おい、話を聞いてなかった。
近寄らないで。あなたたちは人を傷つけるためにそんな姿になったんでしょう。そんなのもう人間じゃないわ。化け物よ。
さあ、行こうローサ。
ちょっとダニーさん。
Right, so we're probably gonna wait until he shows his true colors, then go save her again. And get through this mess.
一緒に来てくれて嬉しいよローサ。私を信用してくれたんだね。
さっきの話が嘘ならいいと思ってるのは本当よ。けれど今はあなたのことを信じる気にもなれないの。ダニーさん。
私のいつの間に。それだったんだね。君の父親ジョージが託したものは。確かにそれのありかを知るために君に黙って盗聴まがいのことをしていたのは事実だ。だがそれもこれも君を巻き込まずにことを済ますためだったんだ。知っているだろう。私やジョージが正義をなすために戦っていることを。私の戦っている存在はとてつもなく強大だ。この町を平芸する巨大な影。ジョージが手に入れたそのデータはエクステンドの危険性を明らかにできる証拠なんだ。それがあればあの影ベリュー連射を足元から崩せるほどのね。
これでエクステンドを。
貸してもらえるかい。
でもそんなに大切なものなら、なぜお父様はあなたじゃなくて私にこれを託したの？そうよ、仕事に関するものならなおのことよ。
全くもってその通りなんだよ。どうしてマナ娘を面倒に巻き込もうとしたのか。あいつに説教してやりたいよ。おかげで私はまたそんな役回りを演じる羽目になる。ジョージがそのデータをどうやって手に入れたかはわからない。だが臆病者のやつはそのデータを有効利用しようという私の誘いを断った上に、君と奥方を連れて国外への亡命を企てた。スピッツベルゲンに渡せば、
Yeah, he's part of Spitzgen.
どもを根絶やしにし、莫大な報酬が手に入るというのに、私としても手を打たざるを得なかったのだよ。悪く思わないでおくれ。すべて君の父親のせいなんだよ。
あの事故はあなたが。
しかし予定外だったのはあの手の
Yeah,
ステンドだ。
that extended save her.
あれは事故の時からずっと君を守っていたようだね。理由はわからないが、おかげであんな処理屋まで巻き込むことになってしまった。まあ、君のエクステンド嫌いのおかげで助かったがね。あんな銃頭を信じろというのも無理な話だ。
Like, he could have. He could have just played on, this and directly just brought the entire thing
君の嫌いな拡張処理を
to the anti-extended organization, anyways.
やめるからね。
This is it's a pretty stupid criminal, actually.
バカな、車に潜んでいたのか。
And here comes Juzo. Ooh, nice.
まさか処理屋、なぜここが。11時方向、奴の車だ。
中途さん、前前。
You're the one controlling it, aren't? Oh wait, is it Juzo controlling? No, it was Mary controlling it. Ooh. Okay, it was wrecked.
.亡霊からお嬢ちゃんを守れというあんたの依頼、きっちり果たさせてもらうぜ。
処理。
That was fast.
この場合、どこから報酬をせしめたもんかね。
What was the purpose of this episode exactly? And we're at the ending already? By the way, I'm muting the background music. Can you play it? The hand. Wait, and they're not going to explain who the hand actually is? The hell? Thank you. Oh, the hand's there? So they got a pet now. Well, that was a weird way to end this series. As far as I know right now, we are going to be getting a second season, second core or whatnot, so there is going to be an extension to the series. Pun fully intended. And so I guess this episode isn't really representative of anything, but I just feel like it's weird that we're ending, even if we do get a second season, right? It's weird to end this series right here, where it doesn't really feel like an ending, let's just say. And honestly, the episode itself was quite cliche, right? Like, this topic, this kind of progression, this kind of plotline has been used many, many, many times before, right? And the episode didn't really do anything new in terms of this sort of setting and whatnot. And you know, we go into all the classic pitfalls, such as the antagonist, the enemy, or the villain trying to show their hand a little bit too early, or gloat about their plan or something like that. Like, come on, if the villain here just appealed to the girl's hatred and still tried to use his words to convince her and whatnot, it could have been easy money, right? Because the girl clearly has a hatred towards the extended. If you could even just say that you're going to take this data and give it to the anti-extended, and that would have solved everything, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's going from the government side or whatnot, or you could use some other kind of stuff to convince her or whatnot. It didn't have to work out that way, but for purposes of the plot and so on and so forth, it had to be revealed. He had to do a portrayal, and that's what pushed her back to our protagonist side, right? And I do feel like, I'm just struggling to think of why this episode would be here right now, and the best answer that I can think of is that it's sort of setting up some future plot in regards to the data on the chip that Juzo acquired, right? Otherwise, it feels really weird for me to have this episode in between all the different plots that are actually moving the story along, right? Things that deal with the corporation, so on and so forth. It even feels like filler in a sort of way, this episode. It's just that I don't think that's the case. I mean, why put a filler as the last episode, right? So it probably does have something to do with the future plot points as well. Potentially, maybe even once they get the data out, it could be the entire premise of the second season or the second quarter, right? Now, one thing that I would have liked them to do a little bit better in this episode is to give a little bit more context to the girl's father, the girl's parents, and whatnot. Like what kind of cases did her father work on, and his stance on the extended. It seems that the girl has this. Of course, she's biased against extended, but I feel like it existed even before the accident happened, right? She definitely seems that she already harbors resent or discrimination against the extended since a long time ago, and that just furthered her belief to it. So I would have liked to see what exactly her parents taught her, what her father taught her, or what they were working on, that kind of stuff. That could have made the episode a lot more interesting, in my opinion. So let's talk about the series as a whole, right? Well, one thing it definitely has going for it is the sort of cyberpunkish setting, right? It does remind me a lot of, well, I guess you can't say it really reminds me a lot of, but I can definitely see the parallels in regards to stuff such as Deus Ex series or Ghost in the Shell, that kind of stuff. And of course, with these type of settings, you're always going to be dealing with different moral questions and moral implications, right? Particularly in this case, it's should extended are discriminated against, right? And so is that what are the problems arising there? Is this justified or not, so on and so forth, right? And how do you exactly define a human when literally, like, a person's entire body has already been changed into the extended? At what point can you consider them not human anymore, right? Which was literally also one of the dialogues in this episode as well. So I do like the setting right here, and the world that they built is also quite compelling. It's actually not completely cyberpunkish, but definitely gives up that kind of feel, right? And the animation and artwork is pretty slick, I gotta say. The fighting scenes, for a series like this, which isn't all that revered, all that popular, I do feel like the animation, the quality is quite good, much better than I expected from a work of this popularity. And all the character designs are quite unique as well, although some of them do seem a little bit unsettling, right? They're not quite like normal, but hey, I mean, Juzo is literally a guy with a gun for a head, right? So that should tell you all about how the series designs characters. So it's got those kind of fundamentals as well. It's good on that part. The dialogue I don't have any gripe with. Story-wise, I will say it's mostly comprised of cliche storylines, cliche plot lines, right? It's definitely stuff that we've seen before. I've seen before. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen before as well. And it doesn't really do anything new to it. It's just, and I wouldn't even say it's executed particularly well. It's just okay, right? It's okay. And really, there's only so much I can take of waiting for Juzo to finish lighting up a cigarette before trying to say another badass line. Doing it once or twice to assert dominance and whatnot, let us get a feel for the character. That's fine and all. Doing it every single time, that gets old real quick, and I'm just like, Juzo, come on, out with it already. And of course, you get all the classic villain gloating and stuff, and then backfiring on them spectacularly, stuff like that. So that is one part, right? But probably my biggest complaint about this would be the flow of the story. So this is a continuous story. We are getting drip-fed bits and pieces in regards to the world, in regards to Jesus' past, in regards to corporation, so on and so forth, right? Now, that of itself isn't exactly bad per se, but with no actual major arc with major developments, the entire pacing of the anime feels kind of slow, right? They seem to be independent episodes, but at the same time, we're continually going back towards the corporation, towards this sort of anti-extended settlement and those kinds of things. So you feel like you're not actually moving anywhere, you're not moving into new territory, you're not encountering actual new situations, but at the same time, the main story is progressing at a very slow rate. Right, so to me, this definitely feels like a slow series. Right, but beyond that, I'd say it's a good anime. Like I wouldn't say it's great or anything, but it's also definitely a lot better than a lot of anime. Let's just say. And with a tighter story, it could really be great, especially when you consider that the action scenes it has, the animation and whatnot, are quite done quite well, and really exceeding my expectations, to be honest. So yeah, and I do, beyond the sort of cyberpunkish-esque setting, another thing that it has going for it, which could be a pro, could be a con, depending on how you look at it, is the old school factor, right? It definitely feels like an old school work, something out of the 90s, or whatnot. The character settings, the character dialogue, how they interact and so on and so forth, gives me a very 90s vibe to the whole thing. So if you like this sort of retro style, then, it is a pretty... It's like icing on the top, right? If you like retro series, this series itself, just the story and the animation and whatnot is quite solid. So that's a boon going for it, right? On the other hand, if you really do prefer, more modern types of colors and so on and so forth, then this one might just seem old, right? It's old and it's slow, right? The story of it, the pacing is slow. So really, you're going through, the young, popular, fast moving, fast paced versus this old, brooding, slow, old school style of work. But yeah, I would say I enjoyed the series so far, and if there is a second season, a second core, hey, I will probably watch it, alright? If just to see how the story progresses along. So, there we go. That was my review on episode 12 of No Guns Life, and the series as a whole as well. I'm not sure how many of you guys have stumbled upon this channel directly because of this series. If you did, feel free to stick around and check out my other works as well. I do non-seasonal anime and seasonal anime. And if you guys are already my subscribers, well, you guys know the drill, right? So, and if you guys don't want to stay here, completely fine. I'm not gonna force you to do anything, right? You do you. But I do hope that we get the chance to meet again. So there we go. Wish you guys all a happy New Year's, an early happy New Year's, and hopefully I'll see you guys all in next year, 2020. This is Maverick signing out. Bye bye.